Dr. Marsh didn't reach for his stethoscope. He didn't call the nurse back in. He just set the lab printout down on the counter, flat, and looked at it like it might change if he looked away and back again. Then he looked up at me, Walter Combs, and for a good 4 seconds he didn't say a single word. 4 seconds doesn't sound like much until you're sitting in a pediatric office in Tulsa, Oklahoma, on a Thursday afternoon, and your 8-year-old grandson is curled up asleep in the chair beside you at 3:40 in the afternoon, when he should have been climbing the walls. "Mr. Combs," he finally said, voice low. The kind of low a man uses when he's choosing every word before it leaves his mouth. "How long has Tyler been taking these gummy vitamins?" I looked over at Tyler, mouth open, breathing slow and even, one sneaker half off like he'd kicked at it in his sleep and given up halfway through. "I don't know exactly," I said. "That's what I'm trying to find out. Let me back up. Because none of this makes sense unless you know how I ended up in that clinic in the first place. I'm 68 years old. 41 of those years I spent as a machinist at a fabrication plant outside the city, the kind of work where you learn real fast that a machine doesn't lie to you. It tells you exactly what's wrong with it if you know how to listen. A rattle means something's loose. A grind means something's dry. You don't ignore either one and hope it fixes itself, because it never does. It just gets worse and waits for you to notice too late. I've carried that lesson into everything else in my life, whether I meant to or not. My son Marcus is 34. Good man. Better than I probably raised him to be, if I'm honest about my own shortcomings back when he was young, and I was still learning how to be a father instead of just a provider. He married Dana about 6 years back. She was a single mother then, raising Tyler on her own after his biological father decided fatherhood wasn't for him and left before Tyler turned 2. Marcus adopted Tyler legally 2 years into the marriage, and I want to say something plain here because it matters to the rest of this story. That boy has never once been anything less than Marcus's son in every way that counts. Marcus never treated it like a technicality. Neither did I. Dana, I liked at first. I want to be fair about that, the same way I'd want somebody to be fair about me. She was sharp, put together, the kind of woman who color-coded her calendar and never showed up anywhere without her makeup done just right. She worked as a regional sales manager for a medical supply company, traveled some, but not more than most people in that line of work. Marcus does long-haul freight coordination, which means he's gone 3, sometimes 4 nights a week, sleeping in a different city every other night, trusting that the house is standing the way he left it when he gets home. That's the arrangement they built together. That's the trust the whole thing was resting on. Tyler's birthday was October the 3rd. He turned 8. I missed it flat on my back for the better part of 2 weeks with a torn rotator cuff from a fall off my back porch steps, the kind of injury that turns a grown man into somebody who can't lift a coffee mug without wincing. By the time I felt human enough to drive, the party was long over, the balloons had gone soft, and my grandson had blown out 8 candles without his grandpa standing there next to him. That ate at me more than the shoulder ever did. I kept picturing him scanning the room during that song, looking for my face, not finding it. So, on a Tuesday, October the 14th, I loaded a big cardboard box wrapped about as neatly as a 68-year-old man wraps anything into my truck. A 14-year-old GMC. I've kept running longer than most men keep a marriage. And I drove from my place in Broken Arrow out to their house in Bixby. Model dinosaur excavation kit. Tyler had been talking my ear off about dinosaurs since he was 5, and I figured it was as good an apology as an old man could put together. The plan was simple. Drop it off, take him for ice cream, let him tell me every single detail I'd missed. The cake, the presents, which one of his friends showed up, and which one didn't. Just be there. 3 days late, but there. Funny how the smallest, most ordinary plan can turn into the day that changes everything. I rang the bell. Dana answered with her phone wedged against her ear, gave me a half wave, mouthed he's in his room, and turned back toward the kitchen still talking, laughing at something on the other end of the line. I stood there a second, holding that box, feeling exactly like what I was a grandfather 3 days late trying to buy his way back into good standing with a plastic dinosaur skeleton. Tyler's room is down the hall, second door, a hand-lettered sign taped to it that says, "Keep out," unless it's Grandpa. I knocked. Nothing. Knocked again, said his name. Shuffling, then the door cracked open, and something in my chest just dropped straight through the floor. He looked wrong, not sick wrong, not red nose and cough wrong. He looked heavy. Eyes half open, head tilted like it cost him something to hold it up. "Hey, bud," I said, keeping my voice easy, crouching down so we were eye level. "Happy late birthday. You still celebrating?" He gave a slow nod, like his neck was moving through syrup. "I'm just tired, Grandpa." Tired. It was 2:30 in the afternoon on a school half-day. He should have been bouncing off the walls asking me 16 questions about the tea. Rex kit, before I even got the box open. I sat on the edge of his bed and handed him the present. He opened it slower than any 8-year-old opens anything, and when he finally got the lid off and saw the little plastic bones, something in his face lit up for real, the way it's supposed to. "I'm gonna dig out the whole skeleton," he said, and for a second he sounded like himself again. Then he got quiet. That particular quiet kids get right before they say something they've been carrying around too long by themselves. He looked at me the way he only does when he wants to make sure it's just us, nobody else listening. Leaned in close. "Grandpa," he whispered, "can you tell Mom to stop giving me the special vitamins? They make my head feel funny, and I don't like it." I didn't grab him by the shoulders, didn't raise my voice. I've spent 41 years learning how to not react to bad news the moment it hits, because the moment you react is the moment you stop thinking clearly. I just nodded, slow, like he'd told me something as ordinary as what he wanted for lunch. "Okay, bud," I said. "Let's go on a little adventure, just you and me. I want you to understand something about me, before I go any further. I'm not a man who goes looking for drama, but I know when something's wrong, the same way I know when a lathe is cutting off center. You don't always hear it right away. You feel it, a vibration under your hands before your brain's even caught up to naming what it is." I felt that vibration standing in that doorway. We walked out through the kitchen. Dana was still on the phone, pacing, laughing about something, barely glanced our way. "Taking Tyler for a little birthday ice cream," I said. She waved a hand without turning around. "Sure, have fun." Didn't ask where, didn't ask when we'd be back. Didn't get off that call for even 5 seconds to say goodbye to her own son. I buckled Tyler into my truck. He still needs the booster, tells people it makes him tall enough to see over the dashboard like a trucker. I pulled out of that driveway going exactly the speed limit the whole way into Tulsa. I didn't call Marcus. Not yet. I didn't call anybody. First, I needed to know exactly what I was dealing with, and I wasn't about to hand my son a half-built engine and tell him it was broken before I even knew which part had failed. I took Tyler to Dr. Marsh's office off Yale Avenue, the same pediatrician who'd been seeing him since before the adoption was even final. Told the front desk it was urgent. When they called us back, I sat down across from Dr. Marsh and I told him exactly what Tyler had whispered to me, word for word, the heavy eyes, the slow way he'd been moving all afternoon like he was underwater. Doctor. Marsh didn't give me the look I half expected, the one that says, "Grandpa's worry too much." He looked at Tyler, sitting on the exam table, swinging his legs and picking at the paper covering, and he ordered a full panel. "Blood, urine, everything. We'll know something in about 40 minutes, he said. We waited. At the 30-minute mark, Tyler climbed down off that table, curled up in the chair next to me, and went out cold, not drifting off out, like somebody had flipped a switch. I sat very still and stared at the wall and thought about him standing in that doorway, slow-eyed, leaning on the frame like he needed it to hold him up. I thought about how close I'd come to putting this visit off until the weekend, the way I almost had. The door opened. "Doctor." Marsh came back in holding the printout, and that's when he stopped, read it one more time, looked up at me, and gave me those 4 seconds of silence before he finally asked how long Tyler had been taking those gummy vitamins. "What's in them?" I asked. He sat down across from me and turned the paper around so I could read it myself. Diphenhydramine, the same active ingredient in children's Benadryl at levels well above what you'd see from a single occasional dose. His exact words were, "consistent with sustained, repeated administration over a period of weeks, if not longer. Not an accident, not once. Repeated." I read that line 3 times over, folded my hands in my lap, and breathed in slow through my nose. "Is his mother home right now?" Dr. Marsh asked, quiet. "Yes." "Mr. Combs, I'm a mandated reporter. I have to file on this." "I know you do. I met his eyes. I need you to understand something first. If you call it in right now, today, with nothing but a lab result and no context, a lawyer makes this go away in a week. And Tyler goes right back into that house tonight with nobody watching any closer than they were yesterday. Give me until tomorrow morning. Let me get a timeline. Get this documented in a way nobody can argue with, and I promise you, whatever happens next, it happens for good. He studied me a long moment. Whatever he saw in my face must have told him I wasn't a man about to do something reckless. 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, he said finally. If I haven't heard from you, I make the call myself. That's not negotiable. Understood, I said, and we shook on it. I carried Tyler out to the truck, buckled him in, and drove the whole way back to Broken Arrow with the windows cracked, letting the October air do some of my thinking for me. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was falling apart, I want to be clear about that, because a man my age has learned the difference between grief and paralysis, and I wasn't paralyzed. I sat at my kitchen table with the lamp on low and a cup of coffee going cold beside my elbow, and I thought the way I used to think through a machine that wasn't running right. What do I know? What do I still need to find out? What's the right order to go about finding it? What I knew. My grandson had been drugged, repeatedly, inside his own home, by somebody who was supposed to be the one person watching over him more carefully than anybody else. What I didn't know yet was how long, how deep, and the question that kept me up past 2 in the morning why. Wednesday morning, 6:40, I called Marcus. Not to tell him everything, not yet. I needed to hear his voice first, take his temperature, before I handed him something that was going to knock the floor out from under his whole life. He picked up on the second ring, sounding like he'd already been up an hour. Hey, Dad, everything all right? Everything's fine, son. Listen, you notice anything different about Tyler lately, energy-wise? A pause. The kind that means he's actually turning it over in his head instead of just answering out of habit. He's been sleeping a lot, actually. Dana said it's probably a growth spurt. Another pause. Why, what's going on? Growth spurt. I kept my own voice easy. No reason, just missed his birthday. Been thinking about him. Would it be all right if he stayed with me a week or two? Grandpa time. Make up for missing the party. I could hear him smile through the phone. Dad, he'd love that. Let me run it by Dana. Appreciate it, son. I hung up and sat with that a minute. Growth spurt. My son had looked his own boy in the face, slow eyes, heavy limbs, out cold in the middle of the afternoon, and filed it away because his wife told him it was nothing. That's not a bad father. That's a blindfolded one. And there's a real difference between the two. I needed to hold on to that because I had a feeling I was going to need the patience for it soon. By 9 that morning, I was sitting across from an attorney named Roland Estep, a man I'd used years back settling my late wife's mother's estate and never forgotten, mostly because he never wasted a single word. I laid everything out on his desk, Doctor. Marsh's report, the lab results I'd photographed on my phone, everything. He read it without a word for a long 3 minutes, then took his glasses off and looked at me. Walter, you understand what you're looking at here? I do. Child endangerment. Possibly aggravated depending on how long this has been going on and what a court decides about intent. He leaned forward. Who else knows? You, the doctor, me. Marcus? Not yet. He nodded slow. Good. Before you tell him, you want this airtight. When a man hears something like this about his own wife, his first instinct is going to be to look for a reason it isn't what it looks like. You don't give him room to do that. You hand him something he can't talk himself out of. He was right, and I knew it the second he said it. What do you need me to get? I asked. Medical documentation, which you've got. Pharmacy records if you can trace where these were purchased. A clear timeline, and eyes on that house. He slid a business card across the desk before I even had to ask for one. Private investigator. Name of Kurt Halbrook, worked out of Tulsa, did family and insurance cases mostly. He's careful, Roland said. He's quiet, and he doesn't miss things. One more thing, Roland said as I stood to leave. When Marcus calls back about Tyler staying with you, say yes right away, and get that boy out of that house today if you can manage it. Already planned on it. He almost smiled. You've done something like this before? No, I said. But I spent 41 years fixing things that broke slow, without anybody noticing until it was almost too late. This isn't so different. Marcus called back at 11:15. Dana's fine with it. he said. Said it might be good for him, change of scenery. He laughed a little. Called it a bonding opportunity. Bonding opportunity. She'd handed her son over without a single follow-up question. Didn't ask how long. Didn't ask what we'd be doing. Didn't even ask to talk to him. I filed that away right next to everything else. I picked Tyler up that afternoon. He was standing at the door already, backpack on, the dinosaur kit tucked under one arm. Dana was somewhere in the back of the house and didn't come to say goodbye. He looked a little better than the day before, a little more like himself. "Are we going on an adventure, Grandpa?" he asked as I buckled him in. "The best one," I told him, and I meant it more ways than he could have understood. "Now I want to tell you about Dana, and I want to be fair doing it, because fairness matters especially when you're angry enough to spit nails. She grew up rough, south side of Tulsa, raised by a mother working 2 jobs, and she built the life she had through nothing but her own grit. Good career, nice house, the kind of image she'd worked hard for and didn't ever want to lose. I liked her plenty when Marcus first brought her around. But somewhere along the way, none of us saw exactly when, the life she'd built stopped being something she loved and turned into something she was just barely holding together. Marcus gone 3-4 nights a week. Tyler loud and bright and demanding in the way any healthy 8-year-old is. And Dana, alone in that house most nights, feeling the walls closing in a little more each week. I'm not saying that excuses one single thing she did. I'm saying I've learned there's a difference between evil and desperate people are plenty capable of doing evil things too. What I didn't know yet, what Kurt Halbrook was about to hand me, was exactly how far gone that desperation had taken her. Kurt called Thursday evening. "Mr. Combs, I've got something you're going to want to see in person. Perkins on 71st Street, 20 minutes. He was there in 15. Big, quiet man, the kind you'd walk past in a grocery store and never remember his face, which I imagine is exactly the point of the job." He slid a folder across the table without a word. I opened it. Photographs, clean, time-stamped. Dana and a man I'd never laid eyes on. Tall, expensive haircut. The kind of easy smile that comes from a life where nothing's ever cost him much. Hotel receipts, 2 different properties downtown. Dates that lined up exactly with nights Marcus had logged as overnight runs. Man's name was Reese Bellamy, 36, ran a small commercial real estate outfit. "How long?" I asked. "Best I can confirm, going on 7 months. 7 months. I did the math in my head and didn't like a single number it produced. "The boy," I said. "Any indication?" "None that I found," Kurt said, steady. "But the timeline on when the medicating started lines up close to when things between her and Bellamy picked up in frequency." He let that sit. "Looks like she needed the extra hours. Tyler was always around, so she made sure he wasn't awake for them." I closed the folder, sat with that a long time. Kurt didn't rush me, just drank his coffee and let an old man sit with something no grandfather should ever have to sit with. She hadn't done it out of cruelty. She'd done it out of convenience, and somehow that landed worse than cruelty would have. "Does Bellamy know about Tyler?" I asked. "Knows he exists. Been told he's a handful, hard to manage." Kurt paused. "Never once asked a follow-up question about that, as far as I can tell." Coward, I thought. 2 grown adults circling that house, and neither one of them had looked twice at an 8-year-old boy and asked a single question worth asking. I drove home with the windows down, that October air carrying the smell of cut grass right at the edge of turning cold. Tyler was at my house, asleep in the guest room, the real kind of sleep this time, natural, easy, one hand still resting on top of that dinosaur box like even asleep he wanted to keep it close. I stood in the doorway and watched him breathe a minute before I went to the kitchen table and opened up an old spiral notebook I used to log machine maintenance in, and I started writing everything down in order, in my own hand. Every date, every detail, Doctor. Marsh had told me, everything Kurt had just handed me. I called Roland and left a message. "We're ready to move." Then I called my son, not to tell him everything, not yet, just to say, "Marcus, I need you to come by tomorrow evening. It's important." He showed up Friday around 6:30, still in his work clothes, looking like a man expecting a quiet dinner. Tyler was already asleep in the back room, I'd made sure of that. Whatever was about to happen at my table wasn't for an 8-year-old's ears, Not that night. Not ever if I could help it. I'd made chicken and dumplings, the same meal I made him every time life handed him something hard, when he failed his driver's test twice, when his first job out of high school let him go after 3 months. He never knew it was a ritual. I never told him. Some things you just do without explaining them. He hugged me at the door, looked around. Something smells good. Where's Tyler? Asleep already, been doing better, getting some color back. He smiled. Good, he needed this. We sat down and I told him to eat first. He gave me that look he's had since he was about 12. You're acting strange, old man, but he picked up his fork and I let him. Let him have the dumplings and a second helping and his sweet tea before I turned his whole world sideways. Then I got up, went to the counter, and set 3 things down in front of him. The medical report, the pharmacy records Roland had helped trace, and Kurt's folder. I sat back down and didn't say a word. Let the evidence talk. I taught him that. He looked at the papers, then at me, then picked up the medical report slow, the way a man picks something up when he's not sure he wants to know what's inside it. Read it. His face didn't crumble. It just went still, the way a pond goes still right before something breaks the surface. He set it down, picked up the pharmacy records, set those down too. Then he opened the folder. The photographs were on top. He closed it again after the first 2. The kitchen was so quiet I could hear the refrigerator humming. Then Marcus stood up, slow, controlled, and said, "Excuse me a minute," and walked down the hall to the bathroom and shut the door. I sat at that table and waited. Take your time, son. Take all the time this needs. He was in there long enough that I refilled my tea twice, long enough the kitchen clock ticked past 10 full minutes. When he came back out, his eyes were red, but his voice was steady. He sat down, looked at the folder without touching it again. Does Tyler know what was in the vitamins? No, he just knows they made his head feel funny and he didn't like it. He nodded once, slow. Good. He doesn't need to know more than that. And right there I saw my son clear as I've ever seen him, not the blindfolded husband who'd filed his own boy's slow eyes under growth spurt and gone back to his root schedule, but the father underneath all of it, the one who'd been there the whole time, just waiting on somebody to hand him the truth straight. How long have you known? He asked. Since Tuesday. He looked up sharp. You sat on this since Tuesday? I needed it airtight before I put it in front of you. Didn't want to hand you something you could talk yourself out of. He was quiet a moment, then let out a short breath that was almost a laugh. Almost. You rebuilt the whole thing before you showed me what was broken. Force of habit, I said. He looked at the folder one more time, then pushed it aside and pulled out his phone. I need that lawyer's number, he said. That's my boy. Marcus didn't confront Dana that night, or Saturday either. He spent the weekend at my place, sleeping in his old room, eating breakfast across from Tyler, watching him dig plastic dinosaur bones out of a foam block at the kitchen table, just watching him, storing it up. Sunday he drove back to Bixby alone, spoke to Roland twice more, moved some money into an account of his own, photographed a few documents from the home office, did all of it careful, methodical, without a single wasted motion. He learned that from somewhere, I suppose. Monday morning, he waited until Tyler was at school. I drove him myself, walked him to the door, made sure he was settled. And then Marcus went into that kitchen in Bixby and sat down across from Dana at the same table she used to stage for pictures, with the good morning light coming through the window just right. He told me everything that evening, word for word, and I'll tell it to you the same way. She was on her laptop, looked up, smiled normal Monday morning. He sat down across from her and slid the medical report over. She looked at it, looked at him, and he watched that smile come apart in real time. She started explaining before he'd even asked her a single question. That was her first mistake. Marcus, I can explain. He was having trouble sleeping, and He let the silence sit there. 10 full seconds. Then he set the pharmacy records down. Then the photographs. She looked at the pictures of herself and Reese Bellamy and went completely still. I trusted you, Marcus said, and his voice never once rose. With my son, with my house, with my name. He stood up. You used every bit of it. Marcus, please, Tyler is my son too. I love him. I would never. You drugged him. Still calm, still steady as a man reading off a shopping list. For months, so you'd have more time with him. He picked his keys up off the counter. Whatever story you tell yourself about that from here on out, that's yours to carry, not mine. He walked toward the door. She said, "Are you going to take him from me?" He stopped, turned around one last time. "You did that," he said, "not me." And he walked out. "I want to tell you how it ended, and I want to tell you the real version, not the version with a soundtrack under it, because that's not how justice actually shows up. It shows up slow, on paper, with a whole lot of waiting attached to it. But it does show up. Full custody was awarded to Marcus, 63 days after he walked out of that kitchen. Dana's attorney tried to argue burnout, mental strain, the pressures of single-handedly managing a household while her husband traveled. Roland put doctor. Marsh's testimony on the record put the lab results and 7 months of traced pharmacy purchases on the table in front of the judge, laid it out clean and documented, and impossible to talk around. The judge didn't need much time with it. Supervised visitation only, contingent on completing a court-ordered evaluation. The district attorney's office filed child endangerment charges separately, and those moved forward on their own track, slower, but forward. Reese Bellamy, when investigators finally reached out to him, cooperated with everything, handed over dates, messages, every detail, and cut Dana loose without so much as a second thought, protecting himself straight through to the end. Coward all the way down, that one, but a coward's cooperation still counts for something in a courtroom. The house in Bixby sold as part of the settlement, and Dana walked away with a good deal less than the life she'd spent years curating. Her social media went quiet sometime around the holidays. The porch decorations stopped changing with the seasons. By spring, somebody else's name was on that mailbox. Not with an explosion, not with a single scene anybody could point to, just paperwork and time, the way the real things actually end. Tyler's doing good now, better than good, most days. He still sleeps at my place 2-3 nights a week, still working on that dinosaur kit he's convinced he's going to be a paleontologist. Changes his mind about it maybe twice a month, and I let him, because that's what 8 is for. Marcus checks on him constantly now, doesn't take a single ordinary afternoon for granted the way he used to. And me, I think about that vibration under my hand sometimes, the one you feel before you can name what's wrong, and I'm grateful every single day that for once in my life, I didn't wait for the noise to get loud enough to ignore.